Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could now have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Roll call. This meeting, I'm going to start with Commissioner. Let me get the right one. Jeff.
Here.
Sorry, Jeff. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
You get old sometimes, your mind just goes ahead and goes blank. So
We all
I've known
know.
Jeff for 40 years.
We all never admit it.
It's recorded now. What can I say, Mike?
Hoping you wasn't looking for a smell.
Yeah. A couple things. I know we talked about it before. The governing body discussed about redoing the LC. I'm not sorry, the LCD. The St. Patty's Day. It's not having it on Wednesday. I didn't know if y'all still want to do that. I cannot do it on Tuesday, so I'd ask that we do it anytime but Tuesday morning. Thursday would be great, or anytime like that. But I have an appointment I set up 3 months ago and I cannot get out of. So I'll take any
Thursday.
Thursday morning?
Thursday morning, 9 o'clock.
I'm good with Thursday.
That work for you, Vicki?
I can make it work.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Mark, do you need a motion on that?
Probably. Or do you want a different time?
Okay.
Vic, you want a different time?
Okay,
Maybe?
good.
No, it's okay.
That
I
work?
can make it work.
Okay.
Also, one thing I discussed, as y'all know, we discussed about the LCDC getting together and information. We had a meeting, and we can sure talk about that later if y'all want to. But I wanted to make sure that we had a member from the commission and an alternate that will attend, and I know they're by Zoom now, attend these meetings. Do we have somebody in place that's doing that now? Vicki, are you doing? Are you?
I have tried,
Okay.
but it's the only time when I normally don't consistently attend is when one of the other commissioners would like to be there for a specific reason. But
I have no problem with that. Vicki, is there an alternative that we'd like to use?
I can fill in as alternative.
Right. It's just so somebody lets us know.
Yeah.
We can do it. And Chad was good about attending.
Yeah, I know.
And then, we always said if you can't make it, let somebody know. And
Yeah.
as far as I know, he was good about attending.
Yeah.
he was but he and I both attended.
Rotated
because
back
we
and
did.
forth.
So I will do the LCDC. I have no problem.
Okay.
And part of the thing was at this meeting, that was a discussion was to formalize who you will formally be our representative on there, and so you can kind of report to us.
Right.
I know other commissioners because and I don't think any of us realized that that's.
Was there any chance of going back to in-person meetings?
I'd rather in person. I hate Zoom, but I know because of COVID-19, I just think in person one-on-one's the best way to conduct business. But until we're out of this, I think we're going to have to live with what we got for right now. But I agree with you, Dave.
Seems like your facility's large enough we could do in-person meetings.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
suggested. Okay. All righty. Public comment. I think I have 3 folks here. And I pronounce it.
I just said one thing.
Yeah.
I just want to note that yesterday in Topeka, Senate Bill 23, which is the tax abatement related to buildings and improvements destroyed or substantially destroyed by natural disaster, passed through the Kansas Senate on a vote of 38-1. So and no amendments were added. So we're really close to
Getting that done.
seeing that one more big step.
we might get that passed before we get our FEMA money.
Yep.
I'll leave that alone, but I agree.
I'm not taking
But-
any credit on that.
Yeah, really. Okay. All right, we're ready to go forward. This is our public comment. We have 3 folks. You've got 3 minutes. Only thing I'd ask is that we don't repeat ourselves when we're talking, so you can get as much information to us if you want. And if I mispronounce your name, because I'm terrible at doing that, please forgive me. But the first one I have, I think, is Joe Bueller. Is that correct? Joe, if you come up and let us know who you are and where you're from, and go ahead.
My name is Joe Bueller. I'm with Little Joe's Asphalt, vice president of it. We've got Teresa Bueller here, president of Little Joe's. We've got Don Burns, head estimator. We've got Nate with Fahey Quality Control, and we've got Britt, salesman and quality control with Fahey. Basically, it's on this Eagle Crossing. We submitted this mix design for Eagles Crossing back in September of 2020. We laid the mix back in, we laid the first lift of base back in November the 9th, and everything was fine with it. Then we came back in with the weather permitting in the 14th and laid the first lift of, the final lift to surface, stopped, and then on the 17th we came back in and finished it, and we figured everything was fine, our compaction, our density, everything was there, our quality control, our mix, everything met. Then about a month later we turn around and we get this deal that your guys' engineers rejected this. And we've been asking this whole time, what are we rejecting it on? And nobody can tell us. All they can say is, we don't want this mix. Well, that's why we submit mix designs, so the engineer can look at them and determine if this is the type of mix that he's wanting on a project. And they can change it if they want to. They can reject it. But it was never rejected. So that's what we laid, and then the next thing that we come up with was that they wanted a 2-inch overlay. But when I met out there on the job, they also told us that they were going to let the builder have temporary permits to get their building started, which they didn't even do that. And then I came back up for a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and Bill Knoll hands me a paper telling me that about a micro seal, and what is wrong with this material? And the only thing I can get out of everybody is, we don't like it. Well, that's not a reason to reject something if it's put down 2 specs and everything else on what you've got. We were also told that they went through and they had Vance Brothers come out and look at this job because they wanted to seal this project, and we offered a fog seal, which at that time would have gave it a 50% penetration to seal it up. And there's nothing, we did that out of the generous of our heart to move this project along.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay. Well, Joe, that's the 3 minutes. I hate to cut you off, but I need to move this right along, and so I appreciate those comments. I think I get the drift of what you're saying. Also, there's a Nate Winkelbauer. Nate, if you'd let us know where you're from, read and stuff like that.
I'm Nathan Winkelbauer. I'm quality control for J.M. Fahey Construction. We produced and sold the asphalt to Little Joe's. I don't have a whole lot to add other than to what Joe said, but a mixed design was submitted, a mixed design was approved. That mixed design was designed by a professional engineer. We tested the asphalt that was laid on the job, and it met specification. It fell within the design limits. And there were also some compaction tests taken from a third party that all passed. So, I guess in my opinion, the owner or developer of the project got what they wanted.
Okay.
Out of the mix. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Nate.
Yep.
John Bonet, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
Morning, John. You let us know where you're from and.
John Bonet, 16391 Fairmount Road, Pacer.
Okay, thank you, John.
My main concern here is I am the developer of the Eagle Crossing. I don't have much to say about the road. It seems to be fine for me. It did meet all the compaction and all that. How they decide to handle it between Little Joe's and the county is kind of my secondary concern. My first is to get building permits, and we're wanting to continue with the progress of our development. We've got 10 ready to dig basements right now, and we've got many more that we're not really wanting to sell a lot to someone other than our approved builders that we know will work with us, with any potential delays and everything. But as far as custom homes or selling to an individual, we're not selling lots because of that. We're pretty much at a standstill until something is approved.
Gotcha.
So my desire is to get what is on the table now passed, so we can continue with our building permits and kind of work out the details later between the asphalt company and the county, and let you guys
Sure.
meet up with some agreeable situation there. We're happy with the work. We chose Little Joe's because he is good at what he does. He's been in it for a long time, and that we didn't want to take any chances of it. So I don't have a lack of confidence in him and his company, but I do need to put some houses up. So I appreciate you guys' attention to it.
I appreciate that, John. I don't think this has anything to do with quality work. I've been out in Lansing for 30 years and 40 years. I used Little Joe's quite a bit out there on our street projects. Mike,
Just to address this with Mark, I thought we had asked for a cash bond or a letter of credit, and that they would be able to proceed.
Mike, we have that.
Right. So there. But it sounded like he was saying he's being delayed.
Well, if the question is there a delay? Yeah, there's delay because the road hasn't been accepted yet, and until the road's accepted, no building permits can be issued. For, probably a month or so, we've been trying to work out the details on it, and we have an agreement here for the board to consider it today. There was a proposal earlier. The board put forward the 2-inch overlay. That's what our engineer was recommending to fix the issues. Since then, Bill Nolan has met with the developers and myself and the county councilor, and we've come up with I think what's a reasonable solution. If you're okay, we can move to that now. So that I have that under to bring it up under administrative business. We have an agreement that's been presented. Oops, forgot to start that.
you're through, Mark.
I'm done. Sorry. Gotta go. So we have an agreement that has been entered into between Mr. Van Fleet with AF Van Fleet Excavating, who is the applicant in this case. He has entered into an agreement, or he has signed an agreement that he's willing to live up to if the Board of County Commissioners approves it. What it does is it puts a slurry seal on the top of the road. They asked that they have until October of next year to do that because they're afraid that the construction traffic might tear up the slurry seal. He's put in place the necessary bonds, letters of credit is being worked on. The amount just needed to be adjusted by $1,800, so we're not concerned with that. And if the board approves this, there are a few other bond items, I think, like maintenance bond. What about the grass or something like that? But those two things need to be worked out, but I don't think that's an issue. Those are typical with any subdivision. So I think if we approve this today, they should be able to get after it and get their building permits and get going. And it's our recommendation from the staff standpoint that we do recommend accepting. We're comfortable with all the terms.
Chairman, you ready for a motion?
Go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board accept the agreement for repair of roadway located in Eagle Crossing subdivision.
Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion on it?
I just wanted to ask.
Go ahead, Jim.
And Joe, have you seen the compromise that we're talking about?
I have, and all that they're presenting there is a slurry seal to go on top of this to seal the voids. And the voids, you're going to have voids in the top of any mix, and they're designed. Your compaction is down in the mix. And so what they're submitting is an aesthetic just for looks. It's not for performance. This is why they're not putting this material on now, because this material won't even hold for construction and that. So it's a waste of money at this point to do that, and no one can tell me what is wrong with our job.
But this is not the 2-inch overlay.
No. And when I was confronted 2 weeks ago by Bill Knoll, he said, well, this isn't a 2-inch overlay. And I said, so you want me to go back in and use the same mix design that I used before to do a 2-inch overlay? What have we gained?
So, Commissioners,
Well, the temperature's probably got a lot to do.
right, I just want to make sure you understand, this agreement and no agreement is with Little Joe. They didn't contract with the county. We don't have an agreement with them. The applicant is the developer, and that's who we're working this out with. What happens between Little Joe's, who is a subcontractor for them, and them is up to them. That's not us. We're not involved in that in any way, shape, or form. I believe there's been adequate information provided on this, despite what you're hearing here, as to why we won't accept it, why the engineering firm that we use, Olson Associates, recommended the 2-inch, and why we've come to the agreement that we've had. I don't think there's anybody who's operating in the dark on this.
Anything else, Jeff?
Nope.
Vicki, do you have anything on this?
No.
Okay.
All right,
Mike, go
one
ahead.
question for Mr. Bonet. Is this going to allow you to proceed? In your opinion, will this solve the issue? Okay, thank you.
But I do have one thing.
Go ahead,
I
Rick.
think that it needs to be made very clear, though, that this sounds to me is an aesthetics issue versus the materials issue, because everything that is being said is correct as far as, but apparently it is aesthetics. And so I don't know what the conversations or the resolution is between the developer and Little Joe's, and because obviously the materials were as specified. There may be more that happened between the whole situation, but by what it sounds to me is that the county has no control over what the agreements are that are made between the developer and Little Joe's. That's where I think it sounds to me that the issue is whether or not the developer wanted to accept the. I'm just a little bit.
So the acceptance of the road is up to the county. I mean, we're going to be accepting it into our inventory. We had it inspected by our engineers, and it's not just aesthetics. They believe that the condition of the road currently will increase the amount of maintenance that will be required on that roadway over its life. I think we've had multiple people besides just our engineer out there looking at it that would agree it's not a typical surface for a new asphalt road. It does not appear that. There's no question about the mix. We believe the mix was accurate. We've seen the testing. It's not the mix. I'm not an asphalt professional. I can't tell you, but what has been communicated to me is that they believe the temperatures were probably just off a little bit on the day that it went down. So with that, I would say that this is a reasonable solution. We've had multiple people look at it, and this is a reasonable solution, and that's why staff is willing to make this agreement versus requirement of the 2-inch overlay.
Okay. Anything else, Vicki? Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Other administrative business?
I do have one other item. Commissioners, you had we adopted a policy, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a policy in 2019 referencing building of residential structures on minimally maintained roads. That came up because of an issue that occurred when we allowed some residents on minimally maintained road. That policy basically prohibits the construction of residences on minimally maintained roads. Now, we have residents throughout the county on minimally maintained roads that were allowed prior to that policy being implemented. The instance that came up, it's the first time that we've dealt with this since that policy was adopted. And quite frankly, I believe the staff was still operating under the old policy, which allowed it with a waiver. So that was the information that was distributed. And with that, I think the county, I've discussed this with the county councilor on how we proceed without causing issues, and I think he might have some feedback on this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. I have reviewed this matter. This, as most cases with respect to the granting of either waivers or special circumstances, is fact-driven. It's specific to this instance. It is not a change in your policy. There are several factors that come into play on this, possible grandfathering, possible discussion of a waiver. The long and the short of it is the best resolution to this that I can offer to you or suggest to you is to grant the exception in this case. There may be a desire on the part of the board to consider whether to remove this property due to the special circumstances from the moratorium on the application of your building codes. That's a policy decision that's up to you. However, based on the particular facts applicable only to this situation, this is not some adoption of a policy or precedent. It's my recommendation you grant the waiver and allow the construction of the residence.
And with the waiver, with the waiver, does someone sign off that understands this is a minimum maintenance road and do not expect full road maintenance out of it?
Commissioner Smith, you are correct. The applicant will be required to acknowledge that this is a minimally maintained road under state low-volume road standards, that the most they can expect is twice-a-year grading upon request, that this is not going to be the traditional county road, and it will not have snow removal. It is a minimum maintenance road, and I believe that's one of the reasons the new policy is to prohibit this from occurring. However, in this specific instance, only this instance, it's my recommendation the waiver application be granted, subject to any additional considerations you might want to apply.
And I think we do require that waiver to be recorded on the deed so that anybody in the future would also realize that that's the case.
Mike? Vicki?
I would ask that we consider not waiving the codes regulations for, we have the moratorium for building codes for this residence as it is been presented to us, because this is going to, by what I'm understanding, is that the residents will be within the building of an operation of a business.
But if they would apply for a permit right away, they wouldn't fall under it, would they? Because we haven't got the codes.
Well, I think what Commissioner Cos is recommending, that they do have to follow building code, even though currently there's that moratorium, because April 1 is when the moratorium lifts, or April, the first meeting in April, I think, actually. But that they would build this building to code because there's potential for a residence to be inside of the structure that they're putting up.
Okay.
Is that a problem?
What do you mean under code? The structure will be.
Well, would you come forward, sir?
We're implementing building codes, 2006 building codes. We have
April.
Could you let me know your name and your...
It's William Brothers.
Okay.
I got the property on 198th Street.
Okay.
On the maintenance road. There was no building codes up until March 1st. This was all submitted before then. And the emails that I have, said that I just had to sign the affidavit, and I was okay with that. And now they're saying that, I couldn't build, but I'm ready to move forward. And there's no it's just a residence inside of a building, and it'll have footings, and the structure will be up to code.
Yeah. I think we understand that. Okay. Can I get a motion on this?
So how would we word that motion?
Approve the waiver.
Well, approve a waiver for the building of a residential structure on a minimally maintained road and require it to meet the building codes, if that's what you intended. If not,
I
leave the building
just
codes
the first part without the code is how I'd make the motion.
that's certainly your prerogative.
Did you make a motion?
I made the motion.
I'll second it. Motion second. Any more discussion on this? Okay, Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nay.
Okay, passes 4-1. You're good to go.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mark?
That's all I had for administrative business.
Okay, consent agenda?
Well, I just had
Sorry,
one more
go
thing.
ahead.
While we're on this minimum maintenance road and then the cross-access easement roads, on these cross-access easements or private roads we're going to have, does it require a sign at the beginning of that it's a private road, or is there any requirements on that?
We do have one, 3/10 of a mile before our property.
That's a different conversation.
No, I'm talking
This is
just
a different conversation.
Your deal's done.
done.
Your deal's done. I couldn't see who was talking with
No,
management. I thought Bill sounded kind of. So.
obviously, on minimally maintained roads, we are required to
Right,
sign.
but I'm talking
on
about,
a
we've got
cross-access
these.
easement. That would be a private road. I'm not sure if we have a requirement that they're signed private roads.
We were going to sign them private roads. We
Okay.
provide the signage for subdivisions. It's a controlled intersection with a county roadway. And so we would provide the stop sign and the road name sign. And on the road name sign, it is my desire to have it be designated with either this roadway is not maintained by Orange County or something to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
Specifying the maintenance responsibilities as you enter that roadway,
Okay.
I think is important.
I do too. So this is something the developer pays for during the platting process, that they would pay for the stop sign, street sign, and private road sign, or no county maintenance
We're going to
sign.
handle it the same as a subdivision roadway,
Okay.
but then include on that post something to the effect of, we weren't going to say this is a cross-access easement, we were going to say
Right.
is not maintained by Leavenworth County.
Yeah, we don't want too many words.
Yeah.
Travel at your own risk. So.
Okay.
All right, that's all I need. I'm sure we've all gotten our share of phone calls and emails from the latest valuations.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't come up with stuff in the envelopes of where all the taxes go, and our local ad valorem tax for reducing property tax that the state is holding.
Forever.
I wish we would have put that out in a flyer with the statements, because that's a lot of money that the state is holding.
That's right.
That is collected in Leavenworth County, that's supposed to be brought back to Leavenworth County for property tax reduction.
Absolutely.
And this is not a one-time thing. This has been going on for years.
Right,
Yeah.
since 2001.
Yep.
It's about $1 million a year every year.
And that's close to 2 mills on our mill levy.
That's
every
right.
every year.
That's just the LAVTR. There are other.
I'm not talking about the city-county funds.
Right,
There's other funds too.
There are other funds that have been affected as well, and,
Yeah.
and we're being held to the fire and accountable for this, but it is not Leavenworth County. It is
Right.
the state of Kansas. And it is decisions that have been made by the elected officials that are at the state level, not at the county level.
Right.
And I said it last time, and I'm going to say it again, I'm tired of us having to accept the responsibility for something that we do not have the control of.
Mm-hmm. And we definitely don't have control over the school districts.
Well, right, but it is not us.
Right.
Well, that's one thing on that, even go further, Vicki. It's like, whether in D.C. or whether in the state or whatever, the work gets done on the local level. And so when you start taking or giving us mandates without funding or taking away funding, if we want to keep the quality of life or do the services we have to have funding. So those calls, I would suggest, I think Commissioner Smith and you are right on money. These elected officials outside this area in the state, chat with them. You can find them. They're easy to find. Let them know you're not happy with that. That's the only way you get things done. If you let it go away, it's going to go, and we will be talking about this again in a year. Hold people to the fire on these things.
Well, I've been talking about it for 2.5 years,
Yeah.
and it doesn't seem to want to sink in that this is not an issue of Leavenworth County, or the question is, what services then do we as taxpayers in Leavenworth County want to give up? Do we want to stop maintaining roads? Do we want to give up our health department?
Because
Do
I
we
don't
want
support.
to close the jail? I mean, what do we want to give up? Do we want to give up the county attorney's office? I mean,
Well, we can talk about that.
I'm saying,
Glad you
what do
came
we want
today.
to give up?
Oh, well done.
The county, because we are doing a darn good job as a Board of County Commissioners with what has been handed to us when the state of Kansas has tied our hands for decades.
Yeah, and I will not support increasing taxes on the local one. So that means you have to give something up
Right.
if you're not
No,
going to do
I'm
that. Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, just one note. I've noticed some of the legislators have been talking about, the property taxes as well, because everybody's hearing from the taxpayers. But, just because you pass a bill that brings transparency, and I'm all for transparency, that doesn't change the root problem. The root problem is the formula you're using. You're basing it on comparable sales, and in our area, that is producing a retroactive automatic tax increase that's actually unsustainable. In 4 years, it's 20% increase on folks' homes. And we have people that are retired on fixed incomes that if that keeps up another 4 years, you can see where that would go.
Yeah.
So we need our state legislators. I heard one legislator said the shenanigans on the local level. Shenanigans. To me, the shenanigans is on the state level where they are not dealing with, they're dealing with one piece of it, but they're not dealing with the root cause of the property tax issue.
Because they didn't have to accept responsibility for the role they have played in where we are right now, and that is that they have withheld funding that is due to the counties in order to assist with the reduction
We're
of
not
those
violating
properties.
any state laws, though. I
And-
look at
and-
it, they are.
They signed an agreement with the counties back before baby Jesus was born. Is that, they signed an agreement. And they said, okay, counties, you do not collect this. We're going to collect this for you, and then we'll give you back these taxes. We'll give you back these to help to alleviate.
Or property tax reduction.
To alleviate the burden of property tax. And the counties were naive enough to trust the state and say, hey, that sounds like a good plan. We will go with this.
Well, it was from 1965 to 2001.
Right, and then, boom, they took it away. Because it wasn't convenient at that point in time with the budgeting at the state level to meet their agenda, that we have been penalized and been told, okay, now you figure out how to fix it. And then they had the audacity to place a lid on the counties in their efforts to try to figure out what the heck do we do? We don't have this funding anymore. It's been taken from us. And from several different areas.
I agree. And it seems like every time the elections come around, this is one topic that's not mentioned enough, and that's the only way you're going to get anything done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm assuming it was temporary, or they would have changed the state statute on it.
And that dollar, when you see the dollar bill and what your property tax burden is, people are calling the county commissioners and they think you can control the taxes, but we control 25 cents. Your school districts control 40 cents. The cities another 20-some cents. I mean, it's not the county that's. I mean, we got to control our spending and our mill
Which
levy.
I think we do.
But it's not under our control.
But what we hear people say is the county, meaning us,
Mm-hmm.
needs to control our spending, and I think we have done an excellent job of controlling our spending, given what we have been required to do with funds that have been withheld from us.
I think most cities and county in Leavenworth have all, I've been around a long time, I think they've all tried to be responsible to doing that. But 20 years, when I took over as city administrator after about a year, I lost that money out in Lansing. And that was
In the
tremendous.
middle of the year.
Yeah.
In the middle, we'd already
Right.
budgeted for it.
Right, they had already had budget, that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
And every time I ask about it, they said, well, we're going to bring it up next time with the legislature. Well, it gets dropped, and we don't remember it until my appraisal went out the roof. I'm with everybody else in here. So we got to hold these people accountable. We need to talk. We beat this horse to death, but I understand the frustration. Doug, do you have anything else?
But just one more thing, and
Doug,
while
I'm
we got
kidding.
I did have another call on that, and that's was a complaint with discharging firearms in the county, and I told them that there is no law against discharging firearms in the county, and that they'd also said that the sheriff had told them the same thing. So,
Yeah.
and there's two attorneys here present,
That's
and you can discharge firearms in the county as long as your rounds stay on your property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Easy answer.
Easy answer.
Okay, we're through.
And we're not going to restrict that at any time in the near future.
No, that's not something. Okay. Mike, did you have something else before we moved on? I think we've done this.
I'm sorry I took up too much.
No, you're not, Doug. That's okay.
But
It's good concern.
The local ad valorem tax, yes.
Hey, I'll beat that horse with you. Okay, back to the consent agenda. Is there anything we need to pull off it before we get a motion to approve? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on it? Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 Passes, thank you. Okay, we'll go into formal board action. Consider a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the application for the aid to local grants for our health department.
So moved?
Second.
Motion second. It's a pretty easy one. Any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
It passes. Thank you. Number B is consider a motion to approve the personnel request from county attorney. Todd, you're up, big guy.
Good morning, Chairman, Commission.
Morning.
Todd Thompson, across the street, so you know where I'm at. I appreciate your opportunity and time to give the presentation. I know it's, I wouldn't be bringing this before you right now if there wasn't a need. Generally, we try to request these during the budgetary times, but we have had a lot of changes within our office and within the courts that has caused an extra burden onto my office. What we are asking for is an additional legal secretary and an additional attorney. In regards to the additional legal secretary, that I will note that my office has had a budget probably the 10th cheapest. I think that was roughly in a stat that was in about 2017, but the 10th cheapest county per constituent for the state of Kansas. And now that's considering, all 105 counties. So we've kept a very trim budget in the office. Since that statistic, we did add additional 2 other staff, but I don't believe that would have raised our statistics much higher per constituent. And as of our budget last year, I think we returned $136,000 back into the general fund. So we do look for savings, and we do not try to waste any of our taxpayers' money. But in the last year, we've not only received a new judge that has added extra requirements onto our staff of information or things that he believes that are necessary, and don't usually say no to a judge, and I don't really have any grounds to say no to him. but that has caused additional work to my staff. Further, since almost a year, we have yet to have trials. Now there is light shining through there, jury trials, I should specify. There's a light shining through there, but that's going to cause a huge hurdle for my staff. One of the things a pet project I've been trying to work on and get started is not only looking at having a veterans court. I've been on the mental health task force with Commissioner Cause, and they've had multiple discussions. I've had multiple discussions with our judges about getting something started like that. My office would not have the capability, even if that was a decision to be made, to start something, because specialty courts cause an additional amount of resources and time. Further, I've also wanted to start a cold case unit. We have seen a lot of groundbreaking work throughout our nation that has uncovered some cases that have not been able to review. I can tell you our law enforcement in my office is doing what it can to stay afloat to be able to charge cases. When these trials start up, we'll probably be, again, suffering a lot of time making sure we get trials to go through. But once we start getting through those cases and whatnot, I would like to continue to proceed and look at those cases and see if I can't have an additional help to be able to do that. So with those notes, that would be my request. I would note for you all, if you had not heard, the Leavenworth Police Department reported yet another year of a 20% decline in crime, as well as Basser, Tonganoxie, Lansing continually being considered on the top 25 list of safest communities. So I want to keep up that measure, and I appreciate the law enforcement that does their hard work, and I want to make sure we can help continue to make our community as safe as possible. For that, I stand for any questions.
Todd, I've got a couple questions for you. And,
sure.
You mentioned in this overtime.
Yes, I did.
Were you able to locate how much?
Yes, I did. At this point, we've done about 47 hours of overtime just in the first 2 months. And really, we've been trying to hold back on the overtime as much as possible, but it's getting to the litmus point of where I'm just going to have to say we need to get some things done.
Did that break down to a dollar amount?
I do have the dollar amount. Actually, I don't have it calculated. I apologize.
Anything even close?
Well, you would ask me math right now.
Sorry, Todd.
$10,000. Does that sound right?
The 40 hours at Nancy. If I calculate those three numbers, is that?
You've got 14.9 and then time and a half. Time and a half.
Oh my.
Yeah, you've got to do time and a half. So you've got.
I'm coming up with about 10 grand.
Welcome to math
In
class.
2 months.
For the camera, I have to
Pop
break
quiz.
out the calculator.
We talked about this, Todd.
I know. Well, I had it. Yeah. Sorry. No, I'm just teasing.
It was $21 an hour
Yeah.
times 40.
I'm going to guess probably about, what did you have?
$21 an hour with the
Right,
purchase overtime
right.
times 40 hours.
Yeah. So,
That's how much you have. Which I could do real quick if you want.
I can. About $850 right now, I think. If Ms. Cos numbers are calculated correctly.
Okay, and this is just for 2 months.
Yeah.
Todd, first of all, I just want to say I think you do a great job over there and your staff. I just got two questions. One, just as more of a comment, I'd sure like to see these things come at budget time. I know sometimes you can't plan on it, and all of a sudden you get a new judge, and I totally get that. So that's no disrespect towards you or your fine folks that work over there, but it kind of makes it tough on us over here. The second thing is, when we look at funding like this and the amount that we're looking at right here, Mark, this question's for you. Where do we go with this?
Commissioners, because our budget has already been set for 2021, and the levy has been placed and our revenues have been estimated, the only thing that you can really do at this time would be to decrease the line item somewhere else. So, in effect, because I'm sure that this money is not available in Todd's budget right now, otherwise he wouldn't be asking. So we would have to go into someone else's budget and reduce their budget to offset this request.
How much is in the all funds?
Those monies have already been allocated, Commissioner. So, again, you would have to go in and make a reduction to some other budget.
Mr. Thompson said he turned back $136,000 last year. That just went into the general fund?
He is part of the general fund currently, correct.
Okay. And Mr. Thompson, do you usually have carryover like that every year, or is it just because of the COVID last year that you had the carryover?
I think it's a little bit of both. We usually have a little bit. We have we're already at cost savings because we have not had we just filled a position, so we're a few months without having someone hired, so we should be a little bit of cost savings that way. I would say we would be safe at hiring someone. By the time we would get someone hired and whatnot, we would be safe for, I think, probably up until budgetary times of probably not going over budget just for the amount that we're saving by the time we probably get someone new hired. I imagine by the time they end the budget, we might be just a little bit over. I'm not quite sure whether we'll have any cost savings after that.
And then is there a huge backlog of court cases that once they open up and start having it?
And that's my concern. Right now, I think the numbers are close to 200 jury trials that we're
200.
So, and I can't make any prediction how they resolve, and so we'll just be ready to go to jury trial as they're ready to go. I know there's been discussions amongst the judges that they might have 3, maybe even 5 judges ready to go every week just to do 5 trials, 3 trials. I mean, we'll just see how that. I haven't got a formal plan on that. That's just rumor, but.
So there is a huge backlog then.
There is. Yeah. There is. I mean, we haven't had a trial in a year.
Right.
And what it would take for me to get a new attorney hired and then ready, trained, or whatever. I mean, if we went on the normal budgetary cycle, and I understand that, I'd be waiting and be trying to do this in the midst of doing all the trials. So I'm trying to look into the future of what we're going to be facing.
Okay. Any other things with them? Todd, if you put this in a note, to have somebody by the time you went out and you did your interviews and did all the stuff like that, what time frame are you looking at?
That's a really good question.
Because that could offset what your request is coming in at too.
It's been just as it's been a difficult market for law enforcement, it's been a very difficult market for prosecutors.
Okay.
I know that Johnson County, Wyandotte, Douglas, and Shawnee County, I think they all still have openings or have been, and so everybody's been clamoring to try to find. I think that's kind of a general throughout the state. I've talked to others in western Kansas that are struggling even more to find good prosecutors to come. For the newest position, I was more going to look for probably someone with less experience. It took me I had a couple of snafus, but it took me about 6 months before I finally filled my open position. One of that is a candidate accepted and declined at the last minute, but to go to another county that pays more, you know how that works. But we have that pulled. That being said, maybe someone a little bit greener would be a little bit easier, but I still think it would be a couple of months before we'd be able to fill that void.
So what you're looking at right here, though, but when you look at the salaries on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, I'm like you, I'm challenged with these numbers. What you're looking at, the total right here, is this for a year's salary and not 6 months when we get to the budget?
For the legal secretary position, yes. For both. Yes.
So you're really not needing that much because we're going to be going in the budget cycle, correct?
Correct.
So your amount here is not a true.
No, we put it.
You just told me what it'd be if we did it for following year.
Correct.
But for this year's budget, you're looking at about probably half of that.
Correct. And by the time we actually, staff might be a little easier to hire. We might be able to get someone hired within 2 months, maybe a month and a half. But an attorney, I'm going to fair guess. If I get someone right out of law school, I would have to wait till September before we can hire them, or maybe May, and they'll be interim. But that would be the first I could probably get someone on board.
Okay, but we're really basically not looking at this full amount. We're looking at 4 months to finish off the year, or 7 months with the clerical support.
And I'll have 3 months savings for a salary that I haven't been able to use at that time. That should have some savings.
Mr. Causes.
What is the salary on level 31?
I'm sorry, Doug, I didn't see.
She's not waving big enough.
Okay. Tell her to get up here with us.
You can say. Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, Vicki.
I didn't see you, Vicki. You're next.
It looks like a 2713. It depends their experience, but that's the base. I guess it could go all the way up to $44.42. We wouldn't be hiring anyone at step 25 at all, but
That sounds like you're getting a bargain for that price.
Well, and that's not my question. Is I want to make sure you get what you need. But if there's any savings before we get to budget time, is where I was directing this, and it sounds like yours. Vicki, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Okay, I think that I want to reemphasize one of the things that that Todd was expressing that I fully support. No big surprise is the mental health court, and we also have a community corrections director who is very experienced in assisting with establishing that type of system, and so she's an excellent resource. And sometimes we have to look at being proactive rather than reactive, and looking at prevention as opposed to incarceration and all those things, and the savings that come over time. And if we have a younger, quote, less experienced prosecutor, I think a lot of times those individuals are also much more in tune to that type of prosecution and using the system in that way to save money, ultimately, from having people placed in jail. I mean, it works through an entire thing. So if we can get somebody on board who begins the process of, even if we do the veterans court, that takes on the veterans court, the mental health court, that kind of takes that as their niche, and we have a judge that is more agreeable to overseeing that system of justice, so that those cost savings continue over time. That will save the county taxpayers money. And I think that's one of the things that we need to look at over time, is how do we save taxpayers' dollars by reducing the cost associated with having people in the court system. And there is, over time, the ability to demonstrate those savings financially. And, I think we had a discussion about what it costs per day for two different sets of systems just yesterday in a meeting. And it's kind of like we need to begin to recognize that. And because of the situation, I think that Todd finds himself in with the overtime situation is not new. I think that the county attorney's office has been dealing with overtime situations for quite some time now. And so we're pulling off a Band-Aid now and fixing something that needed to already be fixed by adding an additional legal secretary or somebody within that position to alleviate some of that overtime, which I think is extremely important. And then at the same time, bringing someone on board, obviously with the backload and the backlog of cases that need to be prosecuted because of the COVID and the courts being suspended, and then being able to then segue into moving into a different system, I think it's a positive thing. That's just my take.
I don't disagree, and Todd, please don't take. I think the things you're doing over there and where you're going, especially on mental health and big, I'm all for. I totally support it. I just get, May's the old city manager. I just get little crossways when I have to look at moving funds to take care. It has nothing to do with the position you're doing. That's why I was asking. It could be easier for me when you tell me that the money that we're going to have to spend and Mark will have to find it somewhere. But the money we have to spend is not as high as because I want to make sure that was a year thing. So, you've already cut that in half, basically.
Right, and I
Taking
want
out
to
your
say,
wages.
I would have liked to just done this in a normal budgetary cycle. I would have. It's just the.
Oh, I understand.
The taxing on the staff,
Yeah.
and the fact that now they're coming in on weekends or overnight, just so they feel comfortable that it's not catching up. It's just making sure we're not.
Just trying to maintain.
Yeah, drowning.
Okay.
Is what we're doing, and then with the additional help for trials to be ready to go forward. I will tell you that in regards to the mental health court and veterans court that we've been looking at, I had an attorney who had been researching. We'd spent about a year or so trying to look at it, but she never had enough time to really vet it, and then she goes and makes herself a judge. So,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I'm back to square one with my research on that. But I sat in a lot of the Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court, as well as the former Chief Justice, has been doing a lot of seminars, really promoting this. Johnson, they came to us initially, and we had some judges who weren't that interested in it. We now have some interest in it. Particularly, we have a new judge who was researching it at one point in time. So I'm very excited about the opportunity, and it could actually bring grants.
Right.
Which could offset and bring back savings, which would be nice, but I don't even have the capability to spend the resources to look at that with how taxed we are with ours. I hate taking money from anybody else. I hate taking money from the taxpayers. I mean, I wouldn't be here if it was not a need. So.
I understand, Todd. Okay.
I had a couple questions.
Mike.
You were talking about starting specialty courts.
Yes.
What's involved with that? And what is that something you have to have approved from the first judicial district, or how does that work?
You have to have. I mean, the judge has to. Yes, the chief judge has to approve it. The way it has been working is not only generally the way the chief judge has worked it is whatever docket that judge has. So a criminal docket, Judge Kuckelman, he would either have to take that responsibility on himself or give the blessing to another judge to allow them to do that. And I do believe we have some judges that are interested in that. I don't want to misquote them at all about that, but I do believe we have interest in that. The secondary thing is to see the need and the requirement of that and where we would go. A veterans court, we do have veteran-related issues that we could definitely see a need. It wouldn't take up too much time because we don't see an overload of veterans. Mental health, that just crosses a spectrum, and that could be also something we look into. And it's definitely something I would love to get a little more hands-on for cases like that to try to help them out, because they more need a sense of stability and habit to be able to help them. And just incarcerating them is not the best way to do that.
Thanks. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you said a couple. Yes, that's
Okay. Anything else?
Just our concern is with what the legislature do when it comes for us next year to do budget, how we can handle it. I mean, we're going to be able to absorb all this.
Good point. If I can, a couple of things. First of all, Todd is an elected official. It's up to him to determine what he needs for the efficient operation of his office. Some of what's discussed here today sounds like enhancements. Enhancements should happen during the budget cycle. I just want to be clear that they are great services that he is contemplating. Those should be handled during the budget cycle. This is not the first time that we've had a middle of the funding year request, and typically we like to push those off at least until the budget time, because you need to understand that if you approve this today, it's not just a today expenditure or a this year expenditure, it compounds into next year. So that's why we, even if it's not a wait until next year scenario, we do like to wait until at least we're in the budget cycle so that you can see how it's going to impact next year. For the very issue that Commissioner Smith just brought up, is we don't know the legislation that's going to be adopted in Topeka until May, typically. So if there is any way that this request could wait until the budget cycle, I think that would be preferable to me, at least. as far as how I come up with the funds. And if not, if it's truly an emergency that we need to address today and the board directs me, I will definitely find a way to fund this for the county attorney. But typically, we would like to handle this at least during the budget cycle.
So if he hired an attorney, though, he sounds like he's saying maybe he wouldn't come on board until September. You're talking September, October, November, December, so 4 months.
What he said, Mike, what he's saying is...
What if the attorney's hired next week, though? I mean, that's my thing.
Well, that's kind of...
When you give him authorization, I have to come up with the funds at that time. I have to anticipate that it's going to happen immediately if I'm coming up with the funds. If the anticipation is, hey, this isn't going to start for 6 months, that's great, but what if it starts sooner, I guess, is my point. I don't want to put anybody in a position where at the end of the year he's over his budget. And that's why I want to make sure we're going to address it now. And I also don't want to put anybody else in a position of I have to go to a department now and cut those funds from somewhere else. And that's the problem with mid-year requests. Not saying it isn't needed. I'm just saying it's a challenge for us. And when the board makes this decision, understand it's not a decision for this year. It's a decision for this year and every year going forward. And that's why we typically like to make them during the budget process at least. Not saying he can't start sooner. It's just that decision is a budget decision that you all need to consider.
So what's your final date? I mean, you need it on board, but what do you feel comfortable with?
Well, with the staffing issue, with secretary, I would probably need that sooner than later. That is an issue that we're having, and we're going to be going over budget regardless, because I'm going to have to require overtime just to try to keep or maintain. Much less I'll be working with office morale with the amount of hours they're going to work, and a lot more frustration, much higher than I'm already seeing with my office. So, that's not an enhancement. It's just a need for what's being required of them at this present.
Todd, if you do the legal secretary, is that going to take away that overtime?
It would take away. It should. Yeah.
So if we okayed, I'm just throwing it out, we okayed the legal secretary now, but you came back at budget time, which is only a couple months away. Would that satisfy you for what you need right now? Because I understand both sides of this.
Right. With the attorney situation, it's a twofold thing. I wanted to make it very clear that you understood that. Ethically, my attorneys are at the point of they're handling as most as they possibly can. We got an additional person coming on that should take some stress off. That's not going to take a great amount of stress. My serious concern for them is the fact of managing, being able to not only handle their everyday and day-to-day as we're going through possibly 3 to 5 trials a week, and then the next week yet another trial, and making sure we're doing those, at a standard that I think is best. My idea is at some point we're going to catch up, and that's where the enhancement, and that's where we can discuss whether that's going to be a need or not need. But at this point, it's the balance between what they're going to have to be and what they're facing.
So, the question: if we if we as a board preliminarily just said we were going to go ahead and move forward with this, then we would ask Mark to come back with a proposal for making adjustments. Is that how we would handle it typically, or
I'd like to know where the money's coming from.
Right. I mean, I guess we could come back and make the decision after you drafted some different proposals.
Well, it has to come from somewhere. I mean, it's going to have to come from some other place. Well, unless Mark knows something like that.
And if it wasn't all the discussion in the legislature, if we were all allowed to not include new construction in our next year's budget, if we could include it, and not have to deduct that or keep a flat budget, that's the only concern I have is the flat budget.
I agree. One thing that just see how Leavenworth County and the prosecutor's office has done, and all law enforcement, sheriffs, something like that, and the great job they've done to bring down, because I was reading that, Article 2 and seeing how it comes down. You know, it all works together. They work hand in hand down the line. So we got to make sure we're giving him the opportunity and the people he needs. That's why I was thinking, if you've got clerical support needs right now, I would have no problem doing that now. But the other one, I'd want to have some, take some time, honestly.
I'm fine with that. I mean,
because we're
I can tell we haven't started trials, so I can't tell you. I was trying to be forward thinking.
Sure.
With that request.
Sure.
I know what it's going to be like, or I have an idea of it. But yes, I have an idea of it. I don't know.
Okay.
It could handle out a lot smoother, but I can't guarantee you that. I know we need the additional staff, period, and I wanted to make sure you all were very well aware of the options that I was looking for, because I can't just start reviewing. We don't have time to start up a veterans court or a mental health court because I don't have anyone who can even manage doing that because my attorneys are at max at this point.
Yeah, and Todd, I agree with that, but also when you take on a new agenda, a new thing, which I think is great, that's a budget item to me. That's where you're going into the next season.
And I don't disagree.
And you look at what I'm looking at right now, just as me speaking, is you guys, clerical support, legal secretary, that you say that you need right now. And we're going to be in the budget cycle very soon talking about it. I appreciate you bringing it forward, and I just want to throw everything out there to see if there's any way we can help you right now. And, of course, it's up to the other county commissioners. That's why I'm just asking these questions.
No, and I really hate to take money away from another resource that might or definitely needs it. I'm just telling you where we are right now. My staff is just taxed. I'm worried that the attorneys, I know my attorneys are already taxed to where they are.
You know, his job is primary to what our county government does. And if he's saying that his staff is taxed to the point that they're exhausted in enforcing the laws and upholding, the rule of law, that's primary. That's primary role. So I think we should move ahead with what his recommendations are, and we're just going to have to find where we're going to have to make some cuts.
Mike, I agree with everything except totally going forward right now. I think we could, because when you're looking at the salary of the legal secretary, that's not going to harm us, in my opinion, for the next couple months. But when you bring down the attorney, which I support, I would just like to get that in the legal process, and we're only a couple months away from that.
I just don't like to hear what he's saying about his staff being so
I don't either,
exhausted.
But you've got other departments too that could probably come up here. But I'm past law enforcement. I'm very pro on his division. I just want to get it where we can be successful, but not break the bank either.
Chairman Smith, I think if you weigh priorities of the two positions, the staff one is the one that's probably the one that needs to be billed for us more. Like I said, once the trials come, we could be overwhelmed. We could not be overwhelmed. I predict we would. That's why I'm here now. The struggle I will have is if we are overwhelmed, then I'm more than willing to come back and have this conversation in the future. And it'll probably be off time too, and I will probably propose it in the budget as well. I will propose it in the budget as well, obviously. It will be difficult to hire someone. The market is just there. And I can tell you my counterparts in other counties will call me up and ask me about people who have applied and qualifications and things like that, and a lot of them are people that we've also reviewed. So that being said, I can foresee us maybe a conversation, if commission is willing, in a few months to see where we are once trials are going, and if that's going to go, and see how bad the attorney's positions are. I know we're kind of swamped right now, but we don't have that final position running up as smoothly. But I know in the future, or at least in the next budget cycle, I'll be asking for that additional position.
I understand.
If that makes any consideration a little bit
Yeah,
easier.
I understand.
Honestly, I don't want to pull money from another agency that needs it. I mean, our health department has been very, very wonderful, and I know they're just overwhelmed. And I've been very appreciative to them and the other agencies. So I don't want to take from people that might also need it. I just know with my staff, we're going to be continually funding overtime, and I'm going to have a bad morale without that additional staff person. And I can foresee that being a similar situation with the attorneys.
Well, again, if I'm hearing what you're saying, Todd, and correct me if I'm wrong, that legal person right now to handle new requirements that are being brought out or asked to by the judges is probably your primary, and we're going to come back and look at the attorneys. Am I reading you right?
Yeah, I mean, if that's where the rubber hits the road, I mean, obviously, I would hope to have both.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think I do need both. But if you're asking me priority level, and I think that's what you kind of implied, that is exactly where we're at. Because I'm already seeping out extra money in regards to the staff position.
That's what I was reading. Yeah.
I haven't had. I think in about 2 months I'll have a better understanding or 3 months I'll have a better understanding of where we are with the attorney position, or at least how much we can survive with that.
Yeah.
My true fear is then coming back over here, waiting for approval, and then trying to go through the process of finding someone, which might take out until September, or May maybe.
Yeah.
May would be my hope that we could have someone else start. So.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
Mike?
question and this is probably for Mark. If we proceeded with the 44,000, we're still going to be in the same predicament to a point, because you're still going to have to find in the budget where that's going to come from. Any thoughts on that?
It'd be 20,000. 27,000.
Well, half through the year.
Yeah.
Well, my first thoughts would be out of your budget, Commissioner, and I'm only being halfway silly about that. We do have $50,000 in your budget that is for mid-year requests, typically reserved for outside agencies, but that is in your budget, and we could reallocate that to the county attorney. So I mean that in the most sincere way. For $40,000, that's where I would suggest, because it's the only money that I can think of that isn't specifically tagged for something.
And that money specifically usually goes to nonprofits.
It goes, well, it would go to any kind of a mid-year request. So,
but it's not obligated right now.
It's not obligated, so that would be my first. Okay. That would be my first target. So if you're saying I need to fund a administrative position, that would be the first target.
Okay. Okay, Mike, anything else?
That answered my question.
Yeah, Vicki? Done?
This side, if our budgets are froze, but we don't have to, we can still add new construction to our total budget. I think we'll be all right.
What about COVID relief money?
That's a one-time money. You can't use that for ongoing expenditures.
I just didn't know if that would qualify.
And it would not qualify. That money was ended in December. So those funds are spent.
Okay.
So sounds like they're still.
We're going to have some more money coming. Does that qualify for something like this?
First of all, that would be an assumption. I don't like to work on that, even though there's a good likelihood that it'll get passed. It has not been passed. There's a chance that the language will change. The current language that's out there, it does earmark funds for counties, but it's not specific how much yet, and the restrictions are not yet specific either. So I would hate to commit that. And again, that's a one-time expenditure for an ongoing expense. So I'd rather find it in the budget.
But that would get us up to the budget cycle.
And I just did a quick calculation. We might have an excess of 20,000 right now in my budget.
So this will be a wash if we approve it,
Right.
most likely.
If we
But in
don't
case
hire-
we've got a place to take it from at the committee.
If we don't hire someone till the end of March, so April, if we hire someone by April, which is probably relatively sound for that position, it would probably be a wash for the salary.
Well, I don't have
I
a
would
problem.
hate for the record to say I took money from nonprofits as well.
No, we're not putting it out like
Well,
that.
I didn't.
Those aren't earmarked.
Nobody's asked.
Those are not earmarked. The money that we set aside for historical and that stuff is still there. This is unallocated at this time.
You know, folks, I think we beat this. I'd like to get a motion that I could to authorize the legal secretary right now, and then I'll bring it back at budget time for the other one. It gives everybody time to do it, and we can go through a process. Does anybody have a problem?
I move that we authorize the county attorney to have an additional clerical staff. Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion? I think it's a fair thing. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
I keep forgetting your name, Jeff. Aye.
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 Okay, it passes. And we'll see you back at budget time. Thank you,
And
Tom.
I will be back and tell you if we have a need for
Good.
the attorneys. And I will, honest, you know me, I'll be honest. So.
Why not that? We appreciate it.
We just, hopefully, when the legislative session's over, it won't be too
Painful.
painful on us when it's budget time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right,
See y'all
thank
later.
you.
Okay, C, consider a motion to accept the recommendation to award the 158th Street Engineering Redesign Services and Construction Engineering to McPhee Henderson Solutions, amount not to exceed 278,149.43. Bill, all yours.
All right. Pretty much summarized that request there with your opening. So KDOT has awarded Leavenworth County the $900,000 through the cost share program towards the construction of the 158th Street project. That plan set that we currently have for that project had the topography collected in 2003 and was designed in 2004. And so we're looking at a plan set that's 17 years old. And so provided as part of this request for board action was an exhibit that demonstrated the areas of change in topography or landscaping in addition to the utilities that needed to be updated. The county at that time did acquire most of the temporary construction easements and almost all of the right-of-way required for the project. Our records research indicates that we have 13 temporary construction easements that would need to be acquired and one additional right-of-way along the corridor. McAfee Henderson Solutions did the original design work in 2003 and 2004 for the project, so it is most appropriate that they would update the plan set. They have provided a four-phase approach to this in conjunction with typical KDOT grant processes. This project is not a typical KDOT grant project, as it is not administered by the local projects division of KDOT, but we are inclined to follow the process as if it were the same type of grant, and these plans need to be updated to KDOT specifications. So we have about 20 to 25% of the site that needs to be resurveyed, including some pavement corings that need to be taken because there were some asphalt overlays done approximately in 2012, 2010 timeframe along that corridor in order to update the quantities for construction. So phase one pricing for those services for the plan update is $65,030.15. Phase two, bid documents for the project, preparation of the bid documents. There were bid documents produced with quantities, but we need to update those quantities. We may have addendums because of the age of the plan set as we go through this bidding process. The estimated cost not to exceed on phase two of the preparation and addendums of the bid documents is $5,539.60. If we don't end up with addendums, which we shouldn't have too many, but it is possible that price can be reduced. In conjunction with typical local projects, KDOT processes at the time of the contracting of the engineering services, construction and engineering services or construction inspection services are also solicited. I think that there is a cost benefit to the county due to the age of these plans and the type of construction that we're going to have the same firm who is willing to update these plans without doing a full redesign, do the construction and materials testing. It is a 210 working day project. In order to facilitate the 210 working days, we have an estimated cost of $185,979.68. This is in line with the prices that we have received, both for the bridge inspections and 178th Street and Eisenhower Road. The hourly rates are in line with those current projects. And then also, Phase 4, the construction staking services for this project. Typically, these can be done either way. You see these done by the design firm or as a subcontractor of the general contractor. In this specific instance, we are not going to pay to have the plans updated to current standards and do a full update of those roadway plans, so we will not be producing a grading model. These plans are going to be, this roadway is going to be constructed with slope stakes for grading, and they will be pulling cross sections across that, and they will be developing cross sections and station offsets as if this were 2004. Currently, you would have a GPS model created for all projects, and they would do a lot of the grading with the GPS on their heavy machinery instead of using rough stakes. But because of the age of this project, I think it is important that we try to alleviate any issues with the layout by using the same firm that's going to be on site and updating the plans. If there are issues that arise, they can be addressed quickly and should alleviate any change orders or help alleviate any change orders. I'd try to answer any questions you have about this proposal. It allows us to move forward quickly.
17 years later, we're finally coming to the end of this.
I agree with you. With your recommendation. I agree with this recommendation.
Okay. Anybody? More discussion on this?
That's self-explanatory.
I think so.
It's just that I hope any of our other projects don't take 17 years to come to reality here.
Okay.
And I was involved with this.
Agreed.
I'll own it. But I will say there was money budgeted back in, was it 04, 05, that went somewhere else.
And there was
earmarked for this job.
Well, there was also money budgeted, I believe, from my records that I've seen going through the right-of-way acquisition. A lot of the right-of-way was started, they acquired it very slowly over the course of 3.5 years because there was no budgetary money set aside for construction. But from what was within the files, it appeared that they intended to also try to construct it around 2009 and then use those funds for something else. And then I believe county staff completed an asphalt overlay of that roadway in lieu of doing these.
It still didn't make it a Super 2. So, anyways, so the total amount you're asking for is the 276?
278.
Or 278. I got my glasses on now. All right, it's in my area, so I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move, Mr. Chairman, I move that we award the 158th Street County Route 2 Engineering Redesign Services and Construction Engineering to MHS, amount value not to exceed $278,149.43.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion on this one?
Well, it's just folks down in that area have been so concerned about the safety issues and the fatalities that we've had, and this is a really good step.
Yep.
It's a really good step. And,
Get her done.
I think it's been a long time coming, like you said.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody else?
And the money may have been available in the past had the state not withheld funding.
Well,
You're right.
I'm going there again.
You're right
That's
again.
my comment for the
Commissioner
day.
Cause, I don't think anyone can argue with you. No one can defend it.
No, there is
Nor
not. So
should we.
I just want to just reiterate
You're right.
that.
You're singing to the choir.
Well,
Okay.
pretty soon, let's hope it's a number one hit.
Yeah.
Goes viral.
Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 And it passed. Very good. Okay. Next, executive session. That's next.
Oh, how many minutes I need?
How many, Mark?
Commissioners, I would ask for 30 minutes total. And then I think there may be, if we could, on the motion, when you include those who would be in it, that you say others as needed.
You want me to read it? I've got a copy.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and to protect the privacy interests of the persons involved, and that this board resume open session in the meeting room at 11 a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Culberson, Cos, Doug Smith, Mike Smith, Stephen, County Administrator Mark Lawfrey, and others as needed.
Second?
Motion and a second. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 All right, we're heading to executive.
Mark.
I need a motion to return to regular session.
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Culberson?
We need to.
Oh, yeah.
No.
They're voting for the motion to return to regular session?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
it'd be appropriate for you to note that you have returned from executive session, that no action was taken in executive session, and that your intention is to return to regular session.
Thank you. Very good.
Aye.
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 Okay. I'd like to get a motion to authorize the county administrator to manage the pay plan and authorize amendments as needed within the budget.
So moved?
Second.
Motion second. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 That's passed. I heard there's some more folks wanting to speak. Additional public comment. Who do we have? I'm sorry. You come up and just give your name, please.
Teresa Bueller, President, Little Joe's Asphalt. I want to speak, of course, a little more about Eagle Crossing. Not sure the allowable procedures, but would like to request that it be put back on agenda for discussion for the following reasons. The mix and installation is good. We met all required specs, including temperatures. We would not have reached density if the temperatures were not proper. And your Asphalt Institute specs say 50 and rising for placement of surface, and we did that. We met all of that. There's no evidence that there's a problem. It's been indicated that it's the looks, the aesthetics. So why should Van Fleet, Bonet, Little Joe's be forced to do a slurry when there's no evidence of an issue other than the looks? Everything's been met. And I say forced for, that they're being forced to do it because they've been delayed for 60 days now. And we've had letters back and forth, saying exactly what I just stated. And so their building has been stopped for 60 plus days. So it's like they have no other solution other than to say, okay, we'll sign the agreement, because nobody's listening to us. There is Fahey, the asphalt supplier, recently attended a seminar from the National Center of Asphalt Technology, which does recommend that all new roads be sealed. But again, this is a new seminar that was held by the Asphalt Institute, recommending that new roads should all be sealed within a certain time frame. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but this should not be at the expense of Little Joe's, the builder, or Van Fleet. And again, nothing's been given to us that says there is a wrong. It has not met specs. So we're just asking, how can we get this up for further discussion? Anything?
Someone else want to speak on this, or we have another speaker?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Mark, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He said that there's more evidence. We'd like to see it. I mean, that's why we want this to be tabled for a meeting, and so we can have comments back on it. So if you guys can put us back on an agenda to where we can all table it, and like Teresa said, somebody tell us why. Because if it's just the looks, that's the mixed design that was submitted. And Olson is a reputable company. They've been around for years. We've been around for years. And Fahey's have been around for years. Vance Brothers has been around for years.
Yep.
And so we kind of like to, everybody just kind of work together, but we're trying to figure out why, like Teresa said, why we should have it at our expense if we met all of the criteria and the compaction's there. They made a comment about temperature of the asphalt, but you would have never got the density, the compaction of it, if it was wrong. So if we can, I'd like to get this tabled for a meeting to where we can all go over this and discuss it and see what we can come out with on it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mark, any comments?
This item's already been addressed and resolved by the Board of County Commissioners. If you have an interest in taking it back up, I can certainly put it on the agenda, but that would then put the issuance of building permits on the delayed again.
Okay.
I just had a comment. I was thinking, and probably this is something that, I mean, isn't this an issue that should be taken up between you and the developer?
No.
And I mean, your issue is with the county? Is that what you're seeing?
The person that you guys are the ones that are.
Could I get you to stand back over, sir? Thank you.
The county is the one that is pushing this seal coat. So they're the ones that are saying, hey, you can't have a building permit until this thing is a seal coat. But now the other thing that you guys are not looking at is that you okayed a seal coat, but that's in 2022. Okay? You've already went through the harshest winter that we've had in records. We've met a bunch of record colds and everything else freezes. The road's still there. Nothing popped. You're going to have, you come around, you're going to go through another winter before your seal coat. You're doing all this construction on this roadway. Now, if you're worried about this roadway, then something should have been done before they ever did anything to it. But yet you guys are saying, okay, wow, it's a roadway. We can wait for 2022 before we seal coat it. Well, is that held on me? Is that held on Bonet? Or is that held on Van Fleet? This is something that you guys are put to them and said, hey, you guys are going to do this or we're not going to issue building permits. But you're way down the road, but nobody can give us substantial evidence what's wrong. And if you guys are saying it's a substantial evidence that something's wrong, we would like to see it ourselves. But nobody can do that. This is kind of like a Russian roulette to spin the chamber and pull the trigger and see if it hits you or not, you know?
Well, but as a commission, what we do is we go by what our staff recommends, and they refer to an engineer, and the recommendation, we're not experts on asphalt by any means. And that's what they came up with.
Well, so no one's gave us any evidence of this, and that's what we're saying is, guys, you're holding the builder to the gunpoint, you're holding a dirt contractor to gunpoint, you're holding us to gunpoint because somebody does not like the looks of it. It's not the quality, it's not the workmanship, it's not the material, it's just the aesthetics of it. And so, I'm
afraid what would happen is we'd go back and forth. Like we had if we had Bill Knoll up here, he would say one thing, and you would say one thing, and we would
Olson.
But, I
Then
mean,
Olson would say, I mean, where would we be?
we just need some evidence to say, hey, yeah, this is justifiable. But no one has gave us any evidence that it's justifiable. All you're saying is, hey, take it out of their pockets.
Does Olson have a report that we could give him?
Commissioners, what you're hearing is one person's take on this. We have provided documentation as to why we believe that it does not meet the requirements. Your staff is in a position where we have to protect the county from additional expenditures. You have other projects that are out there that have had similar instances, and we're holding those contractors to like standards. That you don't like the answer doesn't mean that an answer wasn't given. That's what I would say on this. An answer has been given. That they don't like the answer doesn't mean it wasn't given.
But the Olson reports were made available to them.
Everything that we have was provided to the contractor. You have finalized this. You've approved a program moving forward. Further discussion is, as I fear, muddies the water on this subject. I can definitely put this on an agenda and bring in expert staff. I can bring in Olson and Associates. You can have these folks back in, and you can have a long debate and conversation, but that will not change the recommendation of staff or of Olson. That's not going to change.
Okay.
And we've made a decision, so it doesn't.
And like I said, you guys put it to Bonet and them that you will do this, or we're not going to give you a building permit. But nobody gave any reason why the looks. And the mix design was submitted to Olson's in September. They could have rejected that mix design and said, hey, whoa, we don't want this course of a mix design. We want a different one. And we could have submitted a different mix design. Olson's did not reject that mix. So they actually approved the mix and did not reject it. So we're sitting here in a deal with you guys saying, why are we held responsible and you guys are wanting us to pay for something and you're not, that we abided by everything and did everything that we were agreed to do that you guys want done. And we actually laid mix on the 14th part of the surface, and if there was a problem with that surface, somebody should have said something before we laid the rest of it on the 17th. Nobody said a word until a month later down the road.
I don't think any of us are capable of addressing any of that unless we had our
I understand that,
director here.
and I went over this with Bill too, and he could not answer one of them questions either. And so what we're trying to figure out is why should we pay for a seal coat, but you guys are saying it's okay to let this asphalt sit for another winter.
Okay, well, you're in the 15 minutes. I don't know. I don't think there's any.
Yeah. And we've also tried to handle it before now and sending letters, and we could never get a response
But
back.
did you ever see the Olson report?
We have not seen anything.
There's
Okay.
One letter.
It just basically indicated it's gone.
The letter says that in Olson's opinion, surface voids will allow water to permeate into the pavement. Freeze-thaw cycles could cause some of that asphalt to come loose. City of Shawnee, for example, puts down open graded mix every year on their streets that water seeps into. They don't have a problem.
Okay, well, I think we've addressed this. I appreciate your comments. Unless there's a commissioner who wants to readdress this, I think we voted on it. If there's not, does anybody else look at this again?
We've just been dealing with the developer and on this project. We haven't really been dealing with the contractor, the subs, or anything.
Developer, it doesn't, no asphalt, I believe, he's
But that's who we have to deal with.
And he's tried, and he's got nowhere. So
Okay.
that's what he's done.
I understand, and I appreciate your comments, but I think we're going to move forward now. If there's any, I know you got additional comment, is there anything from the board?
I just have Basher City Council tonight, and the LCDC's covered, correct?
That's tomorrow, that meeting's tomorrow, sorry.
Tomorrow, yes.
Tomorrow, 12, I think, yeah.
I think that's all I got.
Lansing had one last week. Mike, you got anything?
Just, we had our meeting with the LCD
Oh, yeah.
board, and we had a good conversation. I think, like what Commissioner Cos brought up about having a voting member, that was discussed, and now we've nailed that down. We have our voting member and an alternate, and and other commissioner, you can have two at all times.
Right.
So, but I think, we didn't realize that was the process. And so that was brought up, and then there's just a lot of issues.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. We expect the first one to be like that, Mike. We'll see how it comes out. We're bringing up all the concerns. So we've got another one coming up next week. We're doing it every 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll have something soon to share. But the first meeting was just,
It's preliminary.
it was just everywhere. But it was good. You have to have those meetings to see where everybody's thinking, and I think that went well, Mike.
I agree.
Anything else, Mike?
St. Patrick's Day parade.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday in Tonganochie, and then next Wednesday.
Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay.
I had Easton City Council last night. They postponed it from last week. The mayor's mother passed away, so they moved it to this week. So some of the issues we talked about was they want to look into creating a solar panel farm on some of those vacant FEMA lots. So I'm working with FEMA and the city on getting that worked out. Also on some of those FEMA lots, there's 2 of them that the county owns. One of them has the city's well on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with FEMA to get those lots deeded to the city of Easton out of the county's name. And then I went over the street agreement. Bill Noel gave me a copy of it to go over with them on the county city maintenance of the streets, snow removal, street maintenance, signs, etc.
Talking about on the county routes that go through Easton.
Yeah, County Road 21 comes into town, and so we made a MOU to the county maintain that. And there's also one I got to go
County
over.
route there goes by the old grade school. That's a county route also.
Yeah, and then actually Broad Street in Easton is half in the city and half in the county, so that's another agreement we have to work out. On the agreement, it wasn't exactly the way they wanted it, so I'm going to work with Bill on getting that ironed out. And then we also talked some more about demoing the old grade school in the city, since it's full of mold.
Thank you, Jeff. Vicki?
Yesterday, participated in the mental health task force meeting, and there was really not a whole lot new to report because we're kind of on hold looking at the group as to what the legislature is planning to do. So, but there were the discussions as to whether or not, and the decision hasn't even made whether or not that group of individuals want to continue to work together to assist with the processes of addressing other issues that face the county, like the mental health court, for instance, as a for instance, because of the people who Commissioner Smith had kind of put together to work on the mental health issues for the county. Those individuals all kind of represent, respectively, the professionals that would be involved in that process as well. And I think that was pretty much that.
Okay. Is there any more? Anybody else? Okay.
Just glad that group has stayed together, stayed focused.
It's a good group of individuals.
It is.
Who have
It really is.
Focus and have taken very seriously, and they are updating the data. All the data continues to be updated so that, when appropriate or if appropriate, based on the wants of the Board of County Commissioners, to bring back information and where things are with the task force and with whether or not the county is interested in continuing with the matter of a ballot issue or not. I mean, all of those things are.
What is the? I did listen in the state legislature. They had a bill dealing with mental health. What do you know the status of that, or what would that do?
Well, it may or may not. I mean, all of it is still contingent upon one of the bills, though, that will affect, and the task force members are assisting, especially the school representatives are assisting school districts. I think they're assisting Baser Linwood right now with grant application for mental health professionals within the schools, because I think that there's a lot of promise in addressing some of the expenses of having mental health professionals in the schools through the grants funding available through the Department of Education versus other avenues. And that's still within the legislature, and they're still talking about that and looking at that because of some of the successes that have happened with having individuals implanted and working in partnership with the community mental health system. The CMHC's as a natural partner with that. And so I do know that there's the grants have opened back up, and that we have Baser Linwood is looking at, my understanding, at making application for the same type of position to assist in that in their, but there are matching funds. But USD 453 committed the matching funds to continue that partnership in the position. So, and then the rest is kind of waiting on some of the decisions of the Board of County Commissioner, what will happen with some of the decisions that happen with, like, the Cushing facility and things like that. So a lot of that is just on hold.
Okay. All right, if we have nothing else, I'd get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Culberson?
Aye.
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 Bye.
We're adjourned. Very good.